Part 89. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 881. Chapter 881. The well-deserved protagonist. There were private rooms upstairs, which were naturally given to the female guests. Mrs. Chia, Mrs. Singh and Mrs. Lu invited their respective friends, and the two tables were actually filled. Young girls such as Gu Qingqing and Su 11 also sat at two tables. Jiyan was too busy, so Beizu and Gu Qingqing helped to accompany the guests respectively. Gu Qingqing is fine with it, but Baozu often eats hot pot, and she is the most familiar with the taste and dishes. The lobby downstairs was left to Li Laoer and Lu's Haiheng. Both of them were good at dancing and behaved smoothly. It was a piece of cake to entertain colleagues and friends to eat and drink. The steward selected for the hot pot restaurant is named Yao Qian. Like Zhao Hui, he is also one of Li Zhenzhen's staff and has been working as a deputy in Xianqi. Now being transferred here and promoted to the position of chief storekeeper is a dream achievement for him. He developed a sharp eye in cyclamen, and he knows almost all the guests who come through the door. Waiting to come forward to greet the guests, calling out the guests' surnames or official positions at once, making the guests feel even more satisfied before they even sit down. Hot pot is actually simpler than stir fry. Since it is a new business, Jiyan and the chef only cooked two kinds of soup bases, spicy red soup and big bone clear soup. The brass pot with the charcoal fire was placed in the middle of the table. Half of it was red and the other half was milky white. It boiled and the aroma was fragrant. A row of white porcelain plates were placed around it. Thin slices of beef and mutton, cleaned yellow throat and tripe, golden crispy meat, green shrimp paste, fish balls, beef balls, chicken and carrot balls, fresh mushrooms, thin vermicelli, etc. Wait. The most eye-catching thing is the green and tender vegetables. In this season, he is definitely a well-deserved protagonist. In addition to these, there is also a small cart next to the table. The cart is divided into two layers. The lower layer contains bowls and chopsticks, and the upper layer contains 10 blue and white pot-bellied bowls. The bowls contain sesame paste, fermented bean curd sauce, chive sauce, chopped green onion, chopped coriander, chopped peanuts, shrimp skin, minced garlic, beef sauce, and mushroom sauce. The colors are bright and the variety is dazzling. A colleague who was close to Li Laoer asked with a smile, "Uncle, we usually eat out a lot, but this is the first time for such a fancy meal. Uncle, please stop looking at our jokes and teach us how to prepare the sauce. I've been thinking about the empty city strategy for a long time." Others also joined in the fun and said, "Yes, Uncle, you invite us over, but we can only watch and not eat. It's really unkind." Everyone laughed and agreed. "This is the first time I've seen mutton and beef sliced so thin. Wouldn't it be cooked immediately when it is boiled in water? Yes, these vegetables are so fresh, but are they too bland when cooked? I'm quite optimistic about this meatball, it should have its own flavor." Li Laoer smiled and bowed, and said to everyone, "Everyone in the family knows that our family comes from the north, where the weather is even colder. In winter, every household likes to eat some hot soup. As time went by, I figured out how to eat this kind of hot pot. But when we get here, I'm really not sure whether everyone will be able to get used to eating. That's why we have this small gathering today. I'll let the waiter prepare the dipping sauce for you, and let's eat and drink to our heart's content. You have to eat it to know whether it's good or not, right?" After saying that, he called to the waiters, "Mix the dipping sauce and pour the wine for the distinguished guests." The boys immediately came forward, took small shallow bowls, and asked the guests in a low voice what their taboos were, and then mixed the sauce and served it to the guests. Everyone has also eaten spicy cyclamen dishes and is very familiar with the spicy taste, so they put the mutton directly into the red soup. Wait until it is cooked, take it out, cover it with sauce in a sauce bowl, and put it in your mouth. The spicy kick, the mellow sesame sauce, and the tenderness of the mutton with a little bit of fishy smell, all mixed together, it's really unexpectedly delicious. Even before they had time to speak, curiosity prompted everyone to attack another ingredient. Until, all the ingredients have been tried and everyone is half full. Uncle, this hot pot is absolutely amazing. Yeah, one bite will make your whole body warm. How did you come up with this idea? A simple dish, but it's so delicious. Li Lauer felt proud, but smiled kindly and modestly on his face. As long as everyone likes it, come and support me often if you have the opportunity in the future. After saying that, he asked people to serve the dishes again. Because there are many dishes, the plates are not big, and the amount of dishes is only enough for one person and one chopstick. At this moment, many plates on the table are empty. In the private room upstairs, Mrs. Mrs. Lu and others were also helping to greet everyone. Mrs. smiled and said, I have eaten this hot pot once before at Sujintan. To be honest, I was so greedy when I got home that I had someone prepare a table according to the gourd painting. It's a pity that it doesn't taste right no matter how you eat it, not to mention that there are no fresh vegetables, the soup base is not fragrant, especially the dipping sauce, which is very different. Fortunately, the princess has opened this hot pot restaurant. Whenever I feel hungry, I can come here for a meal at any time. Mrs. Lu laughed loudly and said in surprise, oh, it turns out I'm not the only one who stole the teacher. I also asked the cook to make it at home, and the taste is indeed far worse than this. Just as good news came in from outside, Mrs. smiled and asked her to talk. Princess, tell us quickly, we failed to steal the army, where did we go wrong? Jiyan naturally knew that Mrs. was setting up the ladder for her, so she smiled and said, Mother, I don't know. This soup base looks like bone soup, but it's not just bones boiled with water. More than a dozen kinds of medicinal materials are added to it, which not only tastes good, but also nourishes the body. As she spoke, she pointed to the fish and beef balls, and these ingredients, they are all time-consuming and labor-intensive, and they are made with real ingredients. For example, these fish are made by removing the fish's fishy smell, peeling the skin and shaving the spines, and then beating it thousands of times to turn it into minced meat. Finally, it is rolled into balls after being cooked. It will be delicate and chewy, and it will be delicious. Especially this beef ball, with beef on the outside and shrimp filling inside, it's extremely troublesome. After saying that, she glanced at the women who were listening attentively, winked twice playfully, and added another sentence. Anyway, ladies, if you want to eat hot pot, just come to my place, don't embarrass the cook at home. Everyone laughed and joked. The princess is changing her tricks to make money from us. Yes, I saw it too. Mrs. Lu even smiled and said, then let's eat more today. I'm afraid this is the only chance we can get without spending money. Jiyan pulled Mrs. Liu's sleeve and said coquettishly, Auntie, you don't love me anymore. If you see through it, don't tell me. We can still get along well in the future. Mrs. Lu hugged her and yelled heartily several times, and the others laughed even harder. The room was very lively for a while. At this time, Shui Ling opened the door and came in. He glanced at everyone without leaving a trace and said softly, Princess, a distinguished guest has arrived. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 882. Chapter 882 Princess Congratulations. Distinguished guest. Good news and doubts. She couldn't guess who it was for a moment, so she greeted everyone and walked out. Everyone was also curious, but it was difficult to ask questions, so they continued eating, drinking and laughing. After a while, the good news led a master and two servants in. The master was wearing a big cloak and was wrapped so tightly that it was hard to tell who he was. However, The two maids were very polite and stayed directly at the door with their heads half bowed, respectful and responsible. Seeing that everyone was really curious, Mrs. Lu stood up first and asked with a smile, "Princess, this distinguished guest is..." Before Good News could speak, the master had already opened his cloak, revealing a face that was not very bright, but looked very proud. Mrs. Lu was stunned for a moment and quickly saluted, "I don't know if the third princess has arrived. I am rude." Three princesses. Hearing this reminder, the others quickly stood up and saluted. Some people were muttering in their hearts that they seemed to have heard that the third princess and Princess Kangal had bad tempers and often had conflicts. How come the princess's hot pot restaurant opened today, and the third princess actually came to congratulate it? The third princess seemed a little embarrassed, but she still raised her chin and gently raised her hands and said, "Everyone, get up. I am leaving the palace incognito today. Please treat me as an ordinary friend of the princess." How dare everyone not respond? They immediately thanked him and stood up. The third princess motioned for a maid to come forward and handed Ji Yin a box. "I found this from my father's warehouse. It's a red gold cornucopia. It's the most suitable gift for your opening." Red gold. Ji Yin's eyes lit up. He took the box and shook it in his hand. It was as heavy as 2 or 3 kilograms. Let alone how the cornucopia looks, its weight alone is worth 200 to 300 taels of silver. She couldn't help but smile and hurriedly called to the third princess, "Princess, you haven't eaten hot pot, right? Why don't you stay and taste it?" Having said that, she did not wait for the third princess to refuse, and directly ordered Shui Ling, "Change the soup base and dishes in the next box, and invite the princess to the table later." "Yes, Miss Shui Ling," responded quickly and quickly ordered. The third princess moved her mouth, as if she wanted to refuse a few words. Unfortunately, Ji Yin was not used to her awkward and arrogant temper at all, so he pulled her arm and said to Mrs. Lu, "Auntie, you eat slowly, I will invite the princess to sit next door with the little sisters." "Okay, you don't have to worry about us, just take care of the princess." Mrs. Lu responded quickly and personally escorted them to the door. Seeing Ji Yin and the princess go out, the door is closed. A woman couldn't bear it anymore and asked in a low voice, "When did the third princess and the princess get so close?" Mrs. Jia glanced at her and said, "Princess and princess have noble status, but they are still children after all. It's normal to have a quarrel today and play together tomorrow." "Yes, Mrs." As she spoke, she called the maid waiting at the door and added 2 plates of shrimp paste and beef meatballs. When everyone saw this, regardless of their thoughts, they started eating, drinking, talking and laughing again. On the other hand, the girls in the next box were a little embarrassed and constrained because of the sudden addition of the third princess. After all, everyone knows that the third princess is arrogant and difficult to get along with. The girls wanted to talk, but were afraid that if they didn't speak well, they would make the princess lose her temper. But not speaking, and it seems disrespectful to the princess, they are really in a dilemma. The third princess also knew that she was an uninvited guest and was a little embarrassed, but fortunately she had good news by her side. She arranged for the new dishes and pot bases to be served, and then called on the little girls to pick up their chopsticks again. The third princess didn't eat anything when she got up early, so she was hungry now. She simply didn't care about anything else. First she rinsed the mutton in the red soup, and then took a big bite. Finally, it was so spicy that she couldn't help but inhale, and asked with her eyes wide open, "How much chili pepper was put here, is it really too spicy?" Said this, but the chopsticks in her hand were still honest and plunged into the red soup pot again. Everyone couldn't help but laugh when they saw it, and started eating too. Beizu, a foodie, quickly took over the task of accompanying the meal and happily introduced each dish to the third princess. "Princess, try this. This is called the yellow throat, which is said to be the throat of a cow and has particularly elastic teeth." Cow's throat. The third princess raised her eyebrows in doubt, but her eyes brightened after taking a bite. It's delicious. Give me another piece. Haha, it's much more delicious. There are also these beef meatballs, which are filled with shrimp meat. They are especially delicious and sweet. Bezu was so proud that he kept picking up dishes for the third princess. The third princess also kept eating, and soon her lips were red from the spicy food. But she would rather keep drinking water than put down her chopsticks. This appearance is really no different from the girls just now. The girls gradually forgot about their restraint and started eating, chatting, and laughing occasionally, and the room gradually became lively again. After you have eaten and drank enough, remove the charcoal pots and dishes. The good news made Shuiling serve another good thing, ice cream. This is what she figured out last year when she had nothing to do for her nephew and the others at home. Although it is just the simplest mixture of cream and egg yolk, she has no shortage of fruits on hand. It is very easy to add some color or fruity flavor. This time Jiyan opened a hot pot restaurant and wanted to add some special food, so he contributed ice cream. At this moment, Shuiling brought a large tray with 8 small plum-shaped dishes on it. In each small dish, there are 3 small ice cream balls, 1 white, 1 pink, and 1 yellow, which look very beautiful together. Ah, what is this? Gu Ching Ching asked first. It looks so cute, it seems to smell like milk. Mylan patted the smiling Bezu and said angrily, has Sister Bezu eaten it a long time ago? Sister Lan, how did you guess it? Bezu was surprised and guilty. Well, I just ate it once at Broken Gold Beach last year. Mei Lan took the plate and said firmly, if you hadn't eaten it, you would have rushed over long ago. The reason why you can sit so honestly now is because you have eaten it. Everyone laughed and helped to criticize. The princess is partial, and she is the first to give the orb if she has any good things. Bezu is so unloyal. He ate the good stuff secretly and didn't even tell us. Jiyan smiled and distributed small silver spoons to everyone, and helped Bezu out of the problem smoothly. This is the simplest ice cream. Bezu eats it first, so I can help everyone taste it. When I make something better in the future, I will give it to you to eat first. That's pretty much it. I will remember it. The princess cannot go back on her word. The girls were finally satisfied, chatting and laughing, and eating ice cream. Sweet and delicate, it melts in your mouth. The girl was conquered almost immediately. Wow, this is so delicious. It actually tastes like peaches. What kind of fruit does the yellow one taste like? It's weird, but delicious. The third princess was also curious and ate most of it in one go, while looking eagerly at the good news. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 883. Chapter 883, All children are their own children. Unfortunately, Jiyan was afraid of their bad stomach, and refused to add it again. He only took the card and came out. This thing is too cold to eat too much at a time. Let's play cards. Whoever wins can send someone to pick up a box of ice cream tomorrow. How about that? Okay, hurry up, I want to win ice cream. Gu Ching Ching was the first to respond loudly when she heard that she was going to play cards. She will get married not long after the new year. She can't wait to seize the precious time every day and have fun. The other girls also agreed, but the third princess had never played before and was a little worried. Soon the cards were placed and the girls rolled up their sleeves and started. Jiyan helped the third princess draw a few turtles, and they all managed to escape. Seeing that the faces of her opponents were all covered with 2-finger-wide long strips of paper, the third princess was so happy that she went off to fight independently with great enthusiasm, as if she wanted to plaster them on everyone's faces. Seeing this, Jiyan went out for a walk. Mrs. Lu next door wanted to go shopping together after she had eaten and drank. When she saw good news coming, she said goodbye. Ji-Yin sent them to the door of the stairs, then quietly looked around the lobby, went to the kitchen in the back, and then returned to the private room. As a result, she almost burst out laughing as soon as she opened the door. On the third princess's face, only 2 eyes were exposed, and the rest were covered with notes. The girls were originally patient and a little nervous, but seeing the good news like this, they also laughed. The third princess threw away the cards in her hand angrily, raised her hand to stroke the paper mustache on her face, and was swaying with laughter. When the girls' gathering broke up, the sun was already setting in the west. Perhaps thinking about being locked up in the back house again when we return home, everyone is a little reluctant to leave and looks wilted. Ji-Yin sympathized with them, but there was nothing they could do. These few friends are the norm for most women. Like her, there are not many people in Tianwu who can go out and walk around at will, or even open a shop to do business. I have to say that she is lucky. And she is also willing to share some of this luck with her friends. Don't be reluctant to part with it. I will find another opportunity to call you out to play. Besides, remember to send your maid to get the ice cream tomorrow, everyone will have a share. Oh, the princess is so kind, I've been waiting for your words. Gu Qingqing gave Ji-Yin a big hug. Su 11, Mei Lan and others also smiled happily, imitating Gu Qingqing's example, and took turns giving Ji-Yin a hug. After they were sent away, the third princess awkwardly said to Ji-Yin, "Earlier, I was the one who got into trouble. My mother's matter, I don't blame you." She was confused by the Wu family. It is better to dissolve enemies than to make friends, and good news is not of the nature of honey badgers. They dislike each other and want to fight. What's more, this is the third princess, the emperor's daughter, so it's best if she can live in peace with her. She smiled and said, "What happened in the past is in the past. Princess, don't think too much about it. Does the emperor know that you are here today?" "I know, I came out with my father's permission." The third princess glanced at the fruit and vegetable shop next to her. She understood the news instantly and immediately said, "Today's fruits are very fresh. Why don't you bring some back to the emperor?" "Okay, my father likes to eat peaches, I want to get a few more," the third princess agreed immediately. After saying that, she was afraid of being distressed by the good news, so she quickly added, "The cornucopia I gave you is made of pure gold, enough to buy you a shop. I'll give you a few peaches, but don't feel bad." Ji-Yin rolled her eyes unceremoniously, "You think I'm like you, a cheapskate? I have to entertain guests, so you can go and get whatever you want." After saying that, she called the boy at the door of the fruit and vegetable shop and gave a few instructions to leave the third princess alone. The third princess was really rude, and finally returned to the palace with 2 baskets full of fruits. In the imperial study, the emperor was drinking tea after finishing his political duties. Seeing that the third princess had not come back yet, he was a little worried. He is not afraid of anything else. He is just afraid that the third princess and Ji-Yin will fight again, and it will be difficult to hurt either of them. As a result, before he could tell Manager Yi to greet him at the door, the third princess came back happily. As soon as she entered the door, she said, "Father, I robbed 2 baskets of fruits from Ji-Yin's place." The emperor couldn't help laughing after hearing this, and asked his daughter to sit down and ask a few questions. The third princess talked about the deliciousness of hot pot, about playing cards with notes all over her face, and about picking expensive fruits into the basket. The distressed fruit and vegetable shopkeeper turned blue in the face. When talking about the happy place, she smiled so much that she almost danced, and her expression was in high spirits. The emperor kept smiling and listening, feeling extremely happy in his heart. Children are all good for their own family. In the past, my daughter always acted stupidly. She must have been encouraged by the servants around her, or she had been taught bad things by the queen. Now that the child has enlightened and started playing with Jiyan, things have changed immediately. It seems that in the future we will still have to let my daughter go out of the palace more times, or invite good news to come into the palace to play more. The third princess said happily, leaving a basket of fruits for her father and carrying another basket to Cunning Palace. She didn't expect her mother to be happy, so she just showed her filial piety. The queen was imprisoned for many days, and the news she heard became more miserable each time. Grandfather passed away, parents were imprisoned, younger brother was killed. She hated the emperor for not caring about the relationship between husband and wife, and even more hated the Li family for causing misery to her own family and cutting off the incense of the Wu family. Now, her daughter finally came to see her once, and she actually brought fruits from the Li family. How could she not explode? She smashed all the tea sets on the table and the bottles with flowers in them, and finally pointed at the third princess and cursed, "You heartless beast, the Li family forced my great-grandfather to death, and killed your uncle. You're actually still hanging out with that from the Li family, do you really care about it? If I had known you were so heartless, I should have strangled you to death when I gave birth to you." The third princess saw the fruits rolling all over the ground and the broken porcelain pieces, as if her blood was filled with passion. She was poured a basin of cold water on her pocket, and she was completely chilled from the inside out. There are no secrets in the palace. The third princess almost left Cunning Palace with red eyes. Within a moment, everyone knew about it, and the queen took out her anger on the third princess again. The others could just watch the fun, but the emperor was surprisingly angry and sent someone to severely reprimand the queen. Not only did the queen continue to be grounded, but she was also punished to copy scriptures to purify her heart and nourish her energy. The queen was naturally even more aggrieved. She made noises and curses, which made the stagnant palace walls a little more lively. In Shaokong Palace, there were not many lanterns lit, and most of the rooms were dark, giving off a vague feeling of loneliness. In the main hall, the Queen Mother was sitting on a couch, leaning on a soft golden embroidered pillow. While listening to her grandma vividly talking about the Queen's madness, she drank bird's nest porridge with a smile on her face. Humph, the AI family had a good idea and chose such a good queen. I know the AI family is boring, so I quickly make a joke to relieve the AI family's boredom. She scooped out the transparent porridge water in the bowl twice with a spoon, but her expression changed and she asked, "Why isn't it blood swallow today?" The old woman has been serving the master's food and drink for half her life, and she can tell that the master is unhappy. So, she lowered her head and cautiously replied, back to the Queen Mother, "There are very few blood swallows sent from the south this month, and almost all the places in the palace have been converted into ordinary birds' nests." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 884. Chapter 884, an important moment in history. Before she could finish speaking, the Queen Mother had already thrown away the porridge bowl in her hand. The old woman was so frightened that she immediately fell to her knees. When he was about to say something else, the old standing nearby had already stepped forward to chase him away. "Shut up and get out." The old grandma quickly moved to the door on her knees, then stumbled across the threshold and closed the door tightly. The old took a clean handkerchief and helped the Queen Mother wipe her hands. After a long while, the Queen Mother asked, "Is there any news coming in from the outside?" The old shook his head and said, "No, it must be hard to find chess pieces as stupid as the Wu families." The man outside didn't make any move. The Queen Mother's expression became more and more bad, and she finally took out the armor with gems and put it on, and said word by word, "After the AI family has been cultivating for these few years, has Tianwu even forgotten that there is still the Queen Mother of the AI family? Just the courtiers, a few servants don't take the AI family seriously, they dare to replace the blood swallows that the AI family is used to eating, and say that they have no one to back them up. Who would believe it?" The old quickly advised, Queen Mother, please calm down. It rains heavily this year, so blood swallows are indeed not easy to come by. Even if the guy in front has some thoughts in his heart, he doesn't dare to take it seriously as being unfilial, otherwise, everyone in the world will stab him in the back. How can he have the dignity to sit in that chair? Humph, the Queen Mother snorted coldly. Obviously this reason is not enough to calm her down. I recently made a few sets of new clothes for the AI family. It's the Chinese New Year. The AI family needs to show the whole Tianwu that the AI family is not dead yet. Yes, Queen Mother, the old responded quickly. Seeing that the Queen Mother had no other instructions, she quickly left. The Queen Mother was left sitting at the table, tapping the pillow slowly with her fingers, making a dull sound, like a war drum, but she didn't know where the first flame of war was going to burn. Jiyan didn't know that the palace was in such a mess, and even if he did, he wouldn't care. The great success of the trial opening has made a good start for the official opening tomorrow. Whether it is shopkeeper Yao or all the waiters and maids, they are all as confident as chicken blood. In the afternoon, all the men in the lobby also dispersed. Li Laoer, Lu Haiheng and others helped see off the guests and then went back to sober up. Jiaran, Brother Li, Gilai, and Muju were sitting in the backyard of the fruit and vegetable shop, talking to the good news. Jiaran and Brother Li wanted to visit the teachers at the college one after another to give New Year gifts. They couldn't come to help tomorrow, so they asked Gilai and Muju to take care of them. Gu Li smiled and said, "Young master, don't worry, these two shops also receive dividends from the villain, and they were even repaired by the villain with his own hands. No one wants the business to prosper more than the villain. The villain must do his best." Muju glanced at him and then at Jiyan, who was busy checking the list. He also raised his eyebrows and said, "I will be wherever the princess is. You don't need to give orders, I will do my best." Jiaran smiled, chatted a few more words, and then took Brother Li back to the Earl's mansion. Jiyan brought some food to her sister-in-law and nephew, then she packed up and took Gilai and Muju back to Sujintan early. Today is the first time that the Bean Sprouts workshop in Erkin delivered bean sprouts to the military camp wharf. As soon as the carriage with almost good news arrived at the intersection, Xiaoqui and other women came out to welcome it and announced the good news happily. "Princess, our bean sprouts have been sent to the military camp and fried in the cook camp. All the soldiers love to eat them. Princess, there are 5 restaurants today, and we will need 100 caddies of bean sprouts every day from now on. Also, the people at the relief department are also very good. They ran 3 times a day to carry bean sprouts and sold more than 600 kilograms. Jiyan was also happy for them, so he got out of the car and walked around the bean sprout workshop. The boy from the Chi family happened to be watering the bean sprouts, and his sister was also helping. Originally, the workshop was just a group of ants working, and he was the only one among them. The boy from the Chi family couldn't help but be curious. When he heard that the princess had personally arranged the arrangement, he hugged his sister and cried that night. When he saw the princess coming over, he took his sister and knelt down to kowtow. When the good news was not good, Muju pulled him up and said, "The man has gold at his knees, so don't kneel down. The princess doesn't like to be knelt down either. If you really want to repay your kindness, learn more about your skills, and you will be able to work for the princess in the future." Hearing the good news, he nodded and couldn't help but glance at Muju. He has only been with her for a short time, but he actually understands her temper so well. "Are you naturally careful and responsible, or are there other reasons?" On the second day, the hot pot restaurant named Yangming Tianxia officially opened. There is no shortage of rich people in Xindu, or in other words, there is no shortage of rich people who like novelty and excitement. Yesterday it was a trial opening, and all the customers who had eaten there said it was a good idea, and they helped to promote it after we left. So, before noon, the upper and lower floors of the hot pot building were full. The boy and the maid are much busier than yesterday, with no feet left to touch the ground. Fortunately, the soup base is prepared in advance, and the side dishes do not need to be fried or fried. They only need to be plated. If everyone is busy but not in a hurry, they can do the job well. Jiyan is sitting in the backyard, and he is even more relaxed than yesterday. I originally thought that the second uncle and the others would always come to see me again, but I waited and saw no one. Jiyan couldn't help but be curious, so he asked someone to inquire about it. As a result, when the news came back, she was really shocked. Counting the days, the Chinese New Year is still half a month away. At this time, according to the usual practice, everyone from the court to ordinary people hopes for peace and success, and even if anything happens, it will be postponed until after the New Year. I just want to have a good New Year, and don't cause trouble for myself when it's time to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new. But obviously, this beautiful wish cannot be realized. This year is destined to be an extraordinary year, and it must be recorded in history. Following the previous downfall of the Wu family and the prosecution of 6 officials, the Wang family, a well-established family, was also unlucky at today's court meeting. Where the second son of the Wang family previously worked, more than a dozen people rushed to Xindu, beat the cowhide drum in front of the Dali temple, and complained fiercely. These dozen or so people were in ragged clothes and as skinny as wood, and they didn't know how to walk thousands of miles. If no one helps them, no one gives them confidence, no one will believe it. But these are no longer important. What is important is that they brought conclusive evidence. Wang Lauer manipulated scientific examinations, bought and sold officials, colluded with local wealthy families, and oppressed the people. The records are clearly recorded in the account books. It is said that there are still a bunch of local identification cards, and they have not completely entered Beijing. If you want to check, you can check it to ensure it is true. You must know that since Wang Lauer returned to Xindu, he has always kept a low profile. Unexpectedly, he rarely made a high profile, and he became so high. Wang Lauer, of course, complained in court. While others hesitated for a moment, not knowing whether to help or remain neutral, Marquis Xinting took the initiative to ask for orders to lead troops to search the Wang family. When Jiyan received the news, her first thought was that her adoptive father was really going to avenge her. The Wu family and the queen tried every possible means to get her heart, and the mastermind behind this incident was Wang Lauer. The family is determined to deal with Wang Lauer, but their ability is limited and they don't want to involve the people behind Wang Lauer too early. I didn't expect that the Marquis had only been back so long before he started taking action. In the restaurant in front, people upstairs and downstairs also heard the big news. For a while, they were talking and speculating that the sky was full of excitement. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 885. Chapter 885. Your identity is not simple. What's going on? The Wang family is going to be finished too. Didn't the second master of the Wang family say he was an upright official and had outstanding political achievements, so he was transferred back to Xindu? How could he still commit crimes? Buying an official position and selling an official position is a serious crime. If it is found out, it will be difficult for the Wang family to stand up. I'm afraid there is no need to investigate if there is no solid evidence. The emperor will not raid the Wang family. Didn't you say you haven't copied it yet? What's the difference? Xinting Hao took the initiative to ask for inspection. How could the emperor refuse? The Marquis of Xinting has always been in charge of the northern expedition and has not participated in government affairs. Why is he so proactive this time? Why are you so stupid? The Wang family has a dispute with the Li family. I don't know why the Marquis hates the Wang family. If I seize the opportunity this time, of course the Wang family will not be able to stand up. Everyone was coming and going, talking so enthusiastically that they inevitably forgot where they were and got the Li family involved. Someone noticed that they had strayed in the wrong direction, and quickly coughed twice and advised, "Ahem. Just say a few words. If there is no trace, we are all just guessing. But in the backyard, there is no need to worry about such good news." She wanted to talk to someone, but no one in the family was there, so she could only mutter a few words to herself. "I'm afraid my adoptive father started making arrangements for such a big thing 2 months ago, otherwise the host would not be able to come to Beijing in time." Not wanting to, Muju sat at the door, flipping through a half-worn book in his hand, and replied casually, "It's not 2 months, it's 2 years. 2 years? Ji Yin's eyes immediately lit up. She took 2 tangerines from the fruit basket, threw one to Muju, and then turned on the gossip mode. "Brother Mu, do you know the inside story? Tell me, I promise not to tell anyone else." Muju took the orange, tossed it in his hand a few times, and took the opportunity to make some conditions. "I am really involved in this matter, and no one knows it better than me. But it's just one orange and I can't get enough of it. Say, what do you want to eat?" Ji Yin was straightforward and willing to place a big bet. "Braised pork, white rice." Muju smiled narrowly and added, "It is specially made for me and cannot be shared with anyone else." Ji Yin couldn't help but laugh. Muju is now living with Zhenyi and the others. It is probably because of some small quarrel in private, otherwise Muju cannot add the last sentence. But it wasn't difficult. She immediately responded, "Don't worry, I'll make it for you tonight, just tell me." Muju took 2 bites of the orange and then said, 2 years ago, the Marquis planned to uproot the Wang family. But the old fox of the Wang family was too cunning and protected the family so well that he couldn't find any problems for a while. So, the Marquis transferred Zhenyi and Zheng San to the south to secretly find out the details of Wang Lao'er. Wang Lao'er is indeed more cunning, but the sky is high and the emperor is far away, so he is bolder in the end. Zhenyi and others found out about buying and selling officials. This spring, Mr. Ho temporarily borrowed Ye Tong, steward Ye, to sit in charge, and I also went to help. The more I checked for clues, the more I learned. It just so happened that Wang Lao'er's term of office was up. He returned to Xindu and was busy scheming against the Wu family and he couldn't take care of his hometown, so it would be more convenient for us. Finally, we caught him and exposed his accomplices in Xindu. The Marquis and the Emperor discussed it and decided to cut off the Wang family directly without waiting until the end of the year. That accomplice also had his arm broken, so he had to walk in front of people to avoid making hidden moves from behind, which would make him unable to defend himself. Muju's words were simple and casual, but the amount of information was too much. After listening to the good news for a long time, he finally came to his senses, but then he asked, "Brother Mu, I'm afraid your identity is not simple, right? After all, my second uncle and the others may not know such a secret thing, but my adoptive father actually didn't hide it from you. Why were you put next to me by my adoptive father?" Muju paused while playing with the dagger, raising his eyebrows and smiling mischievously. "You are indeed as smart as the Marquis said, but it's a pity that I can't tell you now." "Reason?" "But I don't have any ill will towards you, you can treat me as, well, as a friend or brother. As I said before, when I am by your side, I will protect you. Anyone who wants to hurt you must step on my body first." At this point, his expression was full of solemnity. Ji Yin felt like there were a few kittens catching her, and she became even more curious. But she also knew that she couldn't ask now, so she could just forget about it. Perhaps the customers at noon were very satisfied with their meal, and the hot pot restaurant's business was better in the evening. Especially at dusk, large swaths of snowflakes floated in the sky, and rows of red lanterns were lit under the eaves, dyeing the snowflakes orange. Sitting in the private room on the second floor, surrounding a hot pot, cooking meat, drinking wine, and enjoying the snow, it is a rare pleasure. At once it attracted numerous guests to compose impromptu poems. Don't worry about the good guys, just shouting out under the influence of wine, you feel that you are quite heroic. Ji-Yin sat in the backyard and watched until the moon was in the sky. When he felt a little sleepy, the Marquis and his second uncle arrived. The second uncle wants to stay here and help with the situation. The Marquis sent good news back to the Earl's mansion. The good news on the road was that of Muju, which made the Marquis laugh, and Muju rolled his eyes. On the 3 days since the hot pot restaurant opened, it has single-handedly taken away 1/3 of the business of all restaurants. It's cyclamen, it's rare for me to have a little leisure time these days. Of course, my colleagues were gnashing their teeth in anger, wishing they could burn the hot pot restaurant to the ground with the anger in their eyes. It's a pity that they dare not. Even if I think about it secretly, I have to cover my ears, for fear that the voice in my head will spread out and be heard by others. There is no other reason. The hot pot restaurant is the business of Princess Kangol, and the person standing behind Princess Kangol is Xinting Hao. In the past few days, the Marquis first sealed the door of the Wang family, then found out the secret passages and secret rooms of the Wang family, killed the Wang family's dead soldiers, and successively arrested the Wang family's kinsmen and minions. The storm that started in Xindu made everyone unable to help but shrink their necks and pretend to be quail when they heard his name. There are rumors in private that the Marquis is taking revenge on the princess. But no one knows what the hatred is about. Whether this rumor is true or not, who dares to touch the princess's business at this time? I'm afraid that the door of the house will be kicked open in the next moment, and everyone, old and young, will be dragged to the market entrance. Ji-Yin didn't know that he had been promoted to the person in Kyoto who could not offend the most. That day in the backyard of the fruit and vegetable shop, she had nothing to do. It was really boring, so she changed into men's clothes and planned to walk around the streets to feel the New Year atmosphere. Shui Ling and Shui Yun also dressed up as servants and changed their coats and trousers, which was novel and uncomfortable. The two of them followed their master, and no matter how much they reminded themselves to hold their heads high, they always seemed a little distracted. Muju, on the other hand, walked behind the three masters and servants, helpless and funny. This dress-up is worse than no dress-up at all. Anyone who is not blind can tell that they are girls, which makes them more eye-catching. Ji-Yin doesn't care about this, it doesn't matter if others see it, she can just be happy. As a result, as soon as they walked out of the back door, they saw a young boy pulling an old woman at the back door of the restaurant next door. Suddenly seeing his master coming out, the boy was so frightened that he took a few steps back. The silver lock fell from the old woman's hand. The young man was afraid that his master would misunderstand him, so he quickly said, "Master, this person must see you. The young master has ordered that no strangers can be brought to you. If I don't agree, she will give me money." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 886. Chapter 886. If you love money, get it wisely. Before he could finish speaking, the old woman might have guessed Ji-Yin's identity and actually rushed over with all her strength. Mujushin stepped forward and kicked the old woman's legs, causing her to kneel down. Shui Ling and Shui Yun also protected their master in the middle. The old woman grimaced in pain, but she still endured it and lowered her voice as much as possible and said, "Princess, this old slave is the nun who is served by the old lady of the Wang family. Our old lady asked the old slave to negotiate a deal with the princess." "A big deal. The Wang family." Ji-Yin looked at Muju vaguely, both interested. Shui Ling and Shui Yun opened the door, and everyone returned to the backyard of the fruit and vegetable shop. Perhaps the old woman felt hopeful, so she entered the door more calmly than before. She even straightened her coat and skirt and patted the snow on her knees. It's a pity that Ji-Yin sat under the eaves of the veranda, holding the heater, watching her tossing around, but didn't speak. The old woman cursed in her heart, and had no choice but to kneel down again. Princess, our Wang family was unjustly confiscated and imprisoned. But our old lady said that the Marquis also obeyed orders, and I don't blame the Marquis, but our Wang family, which has been a century-old family, cannot cut off the inheritance just because of this incident. So, our old lady is willing to pay 20,000 taels of silver and ask the Marquis to be generous and let our old lady and the two young masters go. I just ask the princess to help me be a lobbyist. If it comes true, our old lady will have another 10,000 taels to thank the princess. Hearing the good news, he was surprised and asked, "Where did you old lady get the money?" "It was only 30,000 taels, how generous." The old woman thought she was moved by the good news, so she felt emboldened and stood up directly. This princess doesn't need to know that the Wang family, a century-old family, is not comparable to a small family. Who in Zindu doesn't know that the most insulted thing about the Li family is small family, small family. These four words are full of disdain and contempt for the Li family, a person who transcends classes, from a wealthy family. The old woman blurted out her words now. Obviously she also looked down on the Li family in her heart. Ji Yin changed his expression and sneered, "Our Li family is a small family you talk about, and we have an inextricable feud with the Wang family. Don't you still come to me now? I just don't know where you made the wrong move. Do you think that if you throw out a few silver coins, I will definitely help you? It's such a beautiful idea to let her and the two boys go. How can we cut the grass without eradicating the root? Our Li family has no habit of letting our enemies go and waiting for them to continue causing trouble." After saying that, she called two old soldiers, "Tie this man up and send him to his adoptive father. Let's find out how the Wang family got in touch with the outside world while they were in prison. If we don't make up for it, all the sheep will be gone." The two veterans responded and were about to step forward. The old woman shouted in disbelief, "Princess, don't you like silver the most? This is 30,000 taels, not 3,000 taels." Ji Yin stood up and said, "No wonder you found it on my head. It turns out you heard that I like silver. Then your information is really incomplete. I like money, but I only like my own money. I don't want dirty money. I don't even want the enemy's money." The old woman's eyes were so anxious that she almost bulged out of her head, but she was gagged and dragged off. After all this fuss, Ji Yin lost interest in going shopping, so he thought about it and went to the relief department. Today is not a big court meeting, Li Laoer will stay here. Seeing his niece coming, he smiled and said, "Oh, our little of wealth is here." Recently, young and old people from the relief department bought bean sprouts from the second village and sold them from door to door on the street. Although it is not a matter of getting rich, it is still easy to make 50 or 60 cents a day. This helped him solve a big problem. After all, just sweeping the streets and sewing military uniforms and shoes is not enough to support all the young and old at the relief department. Ji Yin smiled and saluted, and then explained the matter just now, and asked, "Second uncle, how long will it take for the Wang family and the Wu family to be completely resolved? Will there be any recurrence?" No, Li Laoer was afraid that his niece would be worried about this, so he comforted him. "Originally, we were also worried about the reversal in the Wu family. After all, the emperor has no intention of deposing the queen, so we have to be cautious. But I don't know why, the emperor was particularly angry with the Wu family, and the Wu family would definitely die. It's just that it's difficult to do it in Zindu, and we won't be able to arrange for them to go on the road until next year. As for the Wang family, after the imperial court moved to the new capital, the Wang family was just a sideline, and the emperor didn't like it. Now that Wang Laoer has colluded with over there in order to deal with our family, the emperor is even more angry. This time he will definitely cut off the Wang family completely and break off an arm of over there. Ji Yin nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. Li Laoer, on the other hand, remembered some news he had heard recently and tentatively revealed a little bit to his niece. "It's just that if this happens, that person will have no helpers, and I'm afraid he will have to go into battle himself. I'm afraid you won't be able to avoid this year's palace banquet. Ji-yin waved his hands indifferently. Second uncle, don't worry, grandma and my mother are already thousands of miles away. Even if that person takes action, he has nothing to do to restrain our family at most, he is looking for opportunities from me. But I'm not afraid of this, and I even hope that she will jump out soon. Since we are enemies, we will have to fight together sooner or later, so we might as well start early. You don't have to be on guard against thieves every day, worrying about when she will take action, and being in everything you do. You girl, you are very brave. Li Lauer was funny and proud, patting his niece on the shoulder. Just remember not to be afraid at any time, put your own safety first in everything, and don't worry about your family. The good news warms my heart, and I don't forget to remind me to go back. Second uncle, you must also remember, don't panic whenever you hear that I am in danger. I promise that I will never be in danger of my life. At most, I will be trapped for a while. So, you can take your time and think about how to save me, and don't fall into the trap because of your impatience. I know, our Fu Niuer is very capable. Li Lauer couldn't help but knock his niece's little head. Don't you need to show your ability to my second uncle? I'm very curious, how did you do it in the first place? Your grandma and mother cheated and left. Hee, Ji-yin smiled and narrowed her eyes. She flattered him casually, my second uncle is so smart, why should I fool him? It's a little trick, even if he doesn't know about it. The two men chatted about business with each other for a long time, discussed a few trivial matters, and then went to Baiwen Garden together. The Chinese New Year is coming soon, and every family is busy celebrating. Gift giving is a big science, and it is not easy to satisfy the recipient. But in the final analysis, it's just 4 words, give the right medicine. Those who like money will be given money, those who like food will be given food, and those who like elegance will be given calligraphy, painting, and famous flowers. In this way, Baiwen Garden's business also experienced a small explosion. Li Lauer helped to provide cover, and Ji-yin left many potted flowers in the small greenhouse in Dongyuan. Soon, these flowers will turn into silver. The Li family is no longer the refugees who just fled the famine. They dare not say that they are among the top wealthy families in Tianwu, but they are also very important in the new capital. This is inseparable from connections, fame, and the support of many people behind the scenes. Seeing that it is the end of the year, people need to move around, fame requires food and medicine, people need rewards, everything is inseparable from money. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 887. Chapter 887. It's too early to be happy. Last year, Ji-yin made it clear to the whole family that she would no longer take a penny from Baiwen Garden, and would leave all of it to her second uncle to help the family build momentum and build strength. Hands of business have brought Baiwen Garden to its current scale and reputation, thanks to the hard work of the second uncle. Secondly, she is just a few flowers randomly planted in the space. In fact, there are not many more, but not much less. Moreover, she enjoyed the shelter of her family, gave a few flowers, and contributed to the family, which is what she deserves. But the family didn't think so, and the second uncle didn't want to be greedy for his niece's money. So, apart from the normal use of Baiwen Garden's income, the remaining balance will be converted into gemstones, jewelry, clothing materials, etc., and then returned to Ji-yin's small warehouse. The days passed day by day, unhurriedly. Ji-yin handled household affairs in the village, prepared and distributed New Year gifts, and attended this year's village dividend meeting. When she has free time, she has to go to the city to take care of the business of several shops and is busy with the accounting at the end of the year. Fortunately, there is a village chief in the village and Gu Li is in charge of the shop, so it is not particularly busy. One day, When I looked up from the good news, I realized that it was already the 25th day of the 12th lunar month, and there were still 5 days before the Chinese New Year. She was thinking about entering the palace for a banquet, so she quickly called Shui Yun and Shui Ling. I have nothing to do today to help me pick out clothes and jewelry. I have to go to the palace for a banquet during the Chinese New Year. The clothes don't have to be amazing, but they don't make people laugh. Shui Yun couldn't help but laugh and said, "Miss, other ladies in other families wish they were preparing New Year's clothes a month in advance, but you didn't even think about it until the end of the year. Isn't it a little too late?" Ji Yin sat slumped in a chair, holding a pear and gnawing on it, waving his hands nonchalantly. For ladies in other people's homes, their daily work is eating, doing embroidery. You don't see how busy I am. I wish I had 8 hands. How can I have time to take care of such a trivial matter? Shui Ling handed the wet handkerchief to the master to wipe his hands, and helped add a catchphrase from the master. Yes, new clothes and dresses are not as important as earning money. With money, you have everything. Everyone laughed when they heard this. In the end, it was Nanny Lin who stepped forward and said, "Miss, the young lady sent 2 new sets of dresses the day before yesterday. They were sewn by the young lady and her maid. They said they were for the young lady to wear during the New Year." "Oh, I forgot about this." Ji Yin patted her head and said with a smile, "It's good to have a sister-in-law. I don't need to think about it, my sister-in-law has prepared it for me." After saying that, she told everyone, "Remember to remind me to pick out a set of jewelry for my sister-in-law in the past 2 days to add joy to the new year." Before anyone could respond, the Marquis arrived with the steward of the Marquis mansion. The Marquis entered the courtyard first, but the housekeeper greeted the boy and unloaded 8 large boxes in one go. Soon, the boxes were moved into the main room, so packed that there was no space on the floor. "Father, why are you so rich with so many boxes?" Ji Yin poured tea for the Marquis himself and said jokingly. She did not forget to ask the butler to sit down and pour him a cup of tea. Speaking of which, the housekeeper has watched her grow up. Whenever there is something delicious or fun in the home mansion, he is always the first to bring it over. She also regards the butler as half an elder. The butler stood up in panic and took it. After bowing, he was willing to sit down. The Marquis took a sip of hot tea to dispel the coldness in his body. "There are 6 boxes of clothes and supplies here, prepared by the butler for you. The other 2 boxes are some rare jades I brought back from abroad. You can collect them when you have free time. If you find something you like, you can also keep it for future dowry." 6 boxes of dresses? Ji Yin was surprised, turned to smile, and said happily, "I'm so sleepy that I gave you a pillow. Just now I told Shui Ling and the others to prepare clothes and dresses for the palace night banquet, but unexpectedly my adoptive father sent them to me, so I don't have to worry. There is nothing more joyful than sending a gift to your heart." Mr. Ho smiled and nodded. The chief steward was filled with pride and joy from the corners of his eyes and brows, and he said repeatedly, "The needlework ladies in the Marquis's residence have been idle for more than half a year, and the princess can't think of using them. The old slave has no choice but to make the decision on behalf of the princess. I don't know if the princess likes the style of these dresses." Ji Yin called Shui Ling to open a box. "What you see is a button-up jacket made of bright red and gold silk. The workmanship is so exquisite that the embroidery alone takes a month to complete. There are also colors such as peach red, aqua blue, emerald green, snow blue, etc. Almost all colors and styles of coats are gathered together. The second box contains skirts of various colors, with horseface, pleats, and flowers. Each one is also extremely beautiful. The third box contains 6 cloaks, all lined with fur and lined with satin and embroidery. They were both beautiful and warm. The fourth box contains various fur muffs, purses, hand stove covers and other small items. In the 5th and 6th boxes, there are various embroidered shoes and boots. Some are decorated with tassels, and some are inlaid with pearls. They are of different heights and thicknesses, and it is simply dazzling to see. There is no woman who doesn't love beauty. Jiyan couldn't put it down, these beautiful clothes and shoes. Even Granny Lin, Shui Ling, and Shui Yun also came close to them, chattering and discussing how to match them. For a time, the room was so lively that the roof almost fell off. Mr. Ho drank tea slowly, with a smile on his face. The chief steward couldn't sit still and intervened decisively, offering opinions from time to time. Determined to make his princess the most beautiful girl at the palace night banquet. In the middle of the discussion, the Lu family actually sent a nanny over and delivered a box of clothes and shoes. Obviously Mrs. Lu is also worried that the Li family's female relatives are not around, and no one will arrange New Year's clothes for good news. Before the Lu family could leave, Mrs. Jia also sent someone over. Finally, the good news is that we have collected 10 boxes of new clothes, shoes, and socks. Now we no longer have to worry about what to wear during the new year, but we have to worry about what to do if we don't have enough to wear. After all, the weather will gradually warm up after the new year, and thick clothes will need to be gradually shed. And she is so tall that her clothes will be too small until next winter. Fortunately, Beizu was much shorter than her, so he could give it to her to help share the burden. It's just that Beizu is a little fat. In order not to waste these clothes, next year I will supervise her to eat less and exercise more. I was eating snacks at home and learning from my mother how to be a director when I suddenly sneezed hard. There was a fire burning at home, so why did she feel a deep chill? When the long-awaited New Year finally arrived, countless people in Zinda breathed a sigh of relief. It's the New Year, the Emperor has sealed his pen, and the censor has also shut up. Finally, they no longer have to worry about who the next unlucky person will be. If anything goes wrong, it will only happen next year. The only goal at hand is to have a good year. The people have been busy for a year and are looking forward to having something good on the table. The rich and powerful have been busy for a year, but they also want to eat in peace and have a good sleep. It's a pity that everyone seems to be happy too early. Because the night banquet in the palace is about to begin. The good news, who had never been to a banquet before, followed his adoptive father and second uncle into the palace. And the Queen Mother, who had been silent for several years like a transparent person, also dressed up to attend. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 888. Chapter 888, An Early New Year's Eve Dinner. Early on the New Year's Eve, Broken Gold Beach was very lively. Children were wearing new coats and trousers, each dressed like a red envelope with long legs, running around the village. Occasionally, if they get into a little trouble, the women try their best not to have their ears pulled and their butts spanked. I really don't want my child to cry and affect my family's good fortune for the Chinese New Year. On the morning of the 28th, the day before yesterday, pigs and sheep had been killed in the village, and each family received 2 large pieces of meat. The remaining snacks, live fish, vegetables, fruits, and other New Year gifts were also distributed. Actually, the amount of silver distributed by each company is more than 100 taels, so you can afford these things if you want to buy them. But the New Year's gifts given out in the village are completely different in everyone's mind. Every household in the second village also has a share, but the difference is one level lower. De Weishu and De and Zhuang received the lowest grade, only meat and snacks. Because in the evening, the Marquis, Li Laosi, and Mr. Wen, together with the good news, all had to go to the palace for a banquet. After the banquet, they couldn't go back to the village, so they had to stay in the Earl's mansion. So, the Li family's New Year's Eve dinner was scheduled to start at noon. Xiankila had been out of business for 3 days, and the family couldn't wait any longer, so they brought Chef Yang to take over the task of cooking the stove. Jiaran returned with his wife, children, and brother Li. Of course, Li Laosan also went on winter vacation early with the college a few days ago and stayed at home for several days. he was the one who handed out the New Year's gifts. Coupled with Uncle Zhao and the other old men in the backyard, Dr. Zhang, the village elders, and the lonely Lu, the Li family yard is really just as lively as in previous years. Even Mr. Zhang and Gu Li's master and servant were also invited. They don't have many family members, so they can eat together without having to send food boxes to school. When the sun was just setting in the west, the reunion dinner was put on the table. Nearly everyone who flew in the sky, ran on the ground, and swam in the sea was caught in one fell swoop. After frying and frying, they became the best appearance and were placed in front of everyone. Li Lao took the wine jar and filled it with wine for several old men himself, thanking them for their hard work in guarding Broken Gold Beach for another year. You guys have worked hard, and you must have a good drink today. People say that having an old man in the family is like having a treasure. Look at how rich we are at Broken Gold Beach. The treasure is almost a full table full. Everyone laughed when they heard this, especially the village chief and Uncle Zhao, who waved their hands repeatedly. The village chief said, "We are just a few old men who can't lift our legs. We are not treasures. Everyone just doesn't dislike us." Uncle Zhao also nodded and sighed, "Speaking of which, we have suffered a lot in our lives. I originally thought that death would be nothing on the road to escape, but I didn't expect that God would open my eyes and I would have such a blessing. Now I am sleeping on the hot bed, wearing thick coats and trousers, with money to spend, and enjoying hot and spicy food. I could never have dreamed of it before." Jiyan set out the bowls and chopsticks for the old man and said with a smile, "Grandpa Zhao, don't worry, what are you doing now? Take good care of your health. Maybe this time next year, we will set off on a boat and go to the south to see the sea and whales as big as houses. You will definitely be even more emotional by then." "Haha, are you serious?" Uncle Zhao's eyes lit up when he heard this. He slapped his thigh and shouted, "Then I have to take good care of him and try to stay alive for a few more years. That's it. There are so many places in the world that we haven't eaten or visited before. We must go out for a walk if we have the opportunity." The village chief also waved his pipe pot excitedly. Unfortunately, before he could wave a few times, Aunt Wu snatched him away and said angrily, "We are going to eat soon, don't let the cigarette ashes fall out and spoil everyone's appetite." The village chief clicked his lips twice, feeling a little aggrieved. Fortunately, Li Lao immediately stuffed a bowl of wine into his hand. "Uncle, you are the anchor of our Broken Gold Beach. The banquet is about to begin. Please tell everyone a few words." The village chief was immediately happy and spoke in high spirits. "From the time I met the Li family, I knew that the Li family was different. From the difficult journey of escaping from the wilderness, to finally cherishing the good days in front of me. Everyone did not feel that the old man was nagging, but felt the same emotion when they heard it. When more than a dozen wine bowls touched together, the sound was clear and the aroma of wine was wafting. A year of hard work and solid harvest came to a successful end. The female relatives at home were not there, so Aunt Wu and Jiyan sat with everyone. Aunt Wu even poured a bowl of wine. Jiyan also wanted to follow, but unfortunately everyone stopped him ruthlessly. Banquets were also held in the east and west rooms. In the west room, Yeshan brought Mr. Wen's eldest son, Wen Hai, Zheng Sanjiang, Muju, Gu Li, plus Zheng Yi and a few other boys. In the east room are Dong Mei, Aunt He, Aunt Lin, Shui Ling and Shui Yun. Originally, Shui Ling and Shui Yun were supposed to go home during the Chinese New Year, but the mistresses were not around. They were worried and refused to go back, so they stayed. The remaining servants, maids, cooks, grooms and others also opened a table in the kitchen. "We have been busy for a year. At this moment, no matter who you are qualified to enjoy a sumptuous meal." After dinner, Jiyan explained the chores at home, dressed up, changed clothes, and prepared to enter the palace. "I have to say that the craftsmanship of the home mansion embroidery lady is excellent." Jiyan's battle robe for the banquet was a bright red patterned brocade coat with narrow sleeves and a snow satin skirt. There are down trousers hidden in the skirt, and warm deerskin boots on the feet. The belt is embroidered with gold thread with intricate patterns and occasionally dotted with a few pearls, which is very delicate. The jade ring that presses the corners of the skirt is not made of mutton fat jade, but jadeite with excellent water quality. Under the light shines, echoing the emerald green peacock gold thread cloak covering the outside. The cloak looks thin and not bulky, but it is actually sewn with sable skin inside. No matter how cold it is, as long as you hold it tightly, there is a warm little world under the cloak, and the cold air will not invade. As for jewelry, everyone unanimously helped to choose a red phoenix hairpin inlaid with gold and jade, a red gold 7 treasure necklace hanging on the chest, gourd pendants with pink pearl strings on the ears, and a pair of red agate bracelets on the wrists. He Sun and Lin Yan went to battle in person, ironed their dresses, combed their hair, makeup, and took half an hour to complete. Ji Yan was too full just now and has been dozing off now. Finally she woke up and was shocked when she saw the finished product in the mirror. Grandma He and Grandma Lin are very capable, and they managed to transform her from a wild girl into a dignified and noble lady. Let alone outsiders, even she herself feels strange. But that's okay, no matter what outsiders say, this is her first official appearance after all. In order not to embarrass her adoptive father and second uncle, she had to pretend all night. Besides, the rules she has learned for so many years must be put to use once, otherwise Grandma He may be so depressed that she will vomit blood. Sure enough, Grandma He walked around the room several times in excitement, almost wiping tears from her eyes. She kept urging, "Princess, you must not forget those rules, just stick to it for one night." Ji Yan was helpless and funny, so he comforted her a few words. She didn't go to the front yard until a little maid came to invite her. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 889. Chapter 889, Unlocking New Ways to Use Gold Medals. Shui Ling and Shui Yun have been practicing martial arts since they were young. They are not afraid of the cold, so they do not want to wear cloaks. But Nanny He still urged them to wear a short snowshoe skin scarf to prevent wind from entering the collar. Shui Ling wore a purple coat and skirt and carried a purple jade stove with 2 unicorns protecting Ganoderma lucidum. Shui Yun wore bamboo green clothes and held an apricot colored embroidered with a cat playing with butterflies. Mr. Ho, Mr. Wen, Li Lao Er and Li Lao Si were all dressed and standing in the yard chatting, waiting for good news. Ho Ye is still ink-colored bare leather, and the golden crown is bundled. Mr. Wen wore a navy blue brocade cloak with a down lining, which kept him warm and light. Li Lao is wearing an azure-colored silver-patterned cloak and has his hair with a hosta, looking very steady. Li Lao Si was impatient to wear a cloak, so he only changed into a robe with dark patterns of green pine rocks, which was paired with light down pants and a vest. He was not afraid of the cold. Moreover, a palm-width black belt embroidered with gold thread was tied around his waist, which made him appear even more powerful and upright with broad shoulders, broad back, thin waist and long legs. Several maids and boys were helping in the kitchen. From time to time they secretly peeked into the yard, and they couldn't help but look excited. The courtyard is not big, but there are gathered a marquis, an uncle, a censor, and a general. If someone else saw it, I don't know how envious and jealous I would be. At this time, the door to the yard behind was pushed open. Ji Yan came out with Shui Ling Shui Yun. Different from her usual liveliness, her noble and dignified ladylike appearance made everyone look at her in awe. The little maid in the kitchen even covered her heart. The calculation just now was wrong, there is one more princess. The world is so big and there are so many rich and powerful families in the new capital, which family can compare with my master's family? The little maid was so proud and excited that the dishes in her hands almost flew up. In the courtyard, everyone was smiling and appreciating the good news. Mr. Wen praised, "I think of the past when the princess sat obediently on the doorstep eating snacks. It seems like it was just yesterday. In the blink of an eye, she has become a big girl. Yes, my Fu Niu has really grown in stature in the past 2 years." Li Laoer was also pleased and pulled the cloak for his niece. The Marquis did not speak, but gently squeezed the thickness of the cloak and nodded with satisfaction. Li Laosi was afraid that his daughter would be bullied when she entered the palace. Although he also came to the banquet this time, he was still worried. After all, there is no one on the female side who has good relations with the Li family today who can be entrusted to take care of the good news. Mrs. Liu's imperial edict is not of a high enough level, and Mrs. Jia and Mrs. Xing don't even have imperial edicts. Dingu is of sufficient status, but she is a widow and never shows up on such occasions. There was really no way he could do it, so he could only tell his daughter, "Fu Niuer, if someone bullies you, just shout and Daddy will go over and protect you immediately." "Okay, Dad." Jiyan stepped forward and hugged her dad's arm, unable to help but smile. Dad looked like those fathers in previous lives who knew their daughters were going on a blind date for the first time, nervous and helpless. The carriage was ready, and everyone went out chatting and laughing. Mr. Wen sat in the same carriage as Li Laoer and Li Laosi. Mr. Ho brought good news, and Shui Ling and Shui Yun also rode in a car. There was a charcoal pot burning under the carriage, and red brocade cushions were spread on the carriage seat. The preparations were very thorough. Jiyan took off his cloak, peeled an orange and ate it. He didn't look nervous at all. The Marquis was relieved and happy to see it, but he still gave a few more instructions. "There are many people today, if you can't speak, don't speak. Even if they want to cause trouble for you, they won't do it at this time. When you encounter a situation that you can't handle, just put it off, and we will naturally find a way to deal with it when you get home. In addition, you can pick up the food at the palace banquet and make a show of it, but you cannot actually eat it. Be careful if someone tampered with it." Jiyan nodded repeatedly and responded, "Father, don't worry. I have studied with Grandpa Zhang for so many years, how could I not know how to be prepared?" After saying that, she asked curiously, "Father, do you and my second uncle have any means of defense?" The Marquis nodded and stretched out his left hand, with a simple silver ring on his middle finger. There is a goshawk carved on the ring, with its wings slightly spread out. With just a slight pinch, a silver needle will pop out from the bottom of the ring. You will definitely not be able to spot it if you don't look carefully, but when you swipe it through food and drinks, you can easily tell whether it is safe or not by changing the color of the silver needle. Jiyan felt even more relieved when she guessed that the ring came from Zhengjiazhuang. Zhengjiazhuang has been very helpful in the past 2 years. From the equipment for whipping cream in the White Clouds to the arm crossbow for self-defense, even when she had a whim and wanted to install a pulley watering device in the greenhouse, she got her wish. It is no exaggeration to say that only she could not think of it, and Zhengjiazhuang could not do it. Sometimes, she wanted Zhengjiazhuang to think about guns. With thermal weapons, the Northern Expeditionary Army can kill every barbarian left, and the battle losses will be much less. But it is no small matter to transform this world directly from the cold weapon age into the R weapon age. At least she is a little girl and can't figure it out yet. Whether this change will do more good than harm to the world, or will it do more harm than good? Furthermore, even if she wanted to change, she lacked an opportunity. "I just thought about it all the way. When I came back to my senses with good news, the carriage had already arrived in front of the palace gate. Everyone got off the carriage, waited for inspection, and then entered the door. Needless to say, it was not just the little maid in the Li family yard who was amazed by this powerful lineup. Other courtiers or the imperial concubines couldn't help but take a few more glances. Jiyan was also curious. He held the stove and looked around to see the excitement. She didn't feel cold at all, but Mr. Ho was reluctant to part with it. The Marquis said hello to Li Lauer and others, took out the gold medal, and entered the palace in advance to protect the good news. The powerful people with sharp eyes were extremely surprised and helpless when they saw this scene. That's a gold medal. It's a gold medal to open the city gates at night in Zindu city and mobilize 3,000 troops in other places. Now that the Marquis showed it out, he was actually just afraid that his daughter would get too cold after standing for a long time. This is simply. Could it be that the Marquis has made great achievements in battle and is so arrogant that he has lost his mind? Of course, some female relatives also noticed this. They don't care about anything else, they are just extremely envious and jealous. Why can't such a noble, powerful, and handsome man as Xintinghao not get married? That's it, even if they don't get married, they actually hold a peasant girl in the palm of their hands and pamper and protect her like this. How virtuous and capable is this peasant girl? In a carriage, two little girls dressed in luxurious clothes were standing next to each other, both with displeasure on their faces. Does Princess Kangol know some magic? How can she fool the Marquis? The little girl wearing a crimson cloak spoke first. Another companion wearing a lake blue cloak also responded angrily, "Who knows, I'm angry too. That is our Tianwu's protector, how could we be so humiliated by her?" In order to enter the palace early and show that she is superior to others, she actually asked the Marquis to get the gold medal to clear the way. I heard that Mr. Ho wanted to get married to Mrs. Ho, but Princess Kangol refused to let him do it. She is the adopted daughter of the Marquis. If the Marquis does not get married and does not retain blood, the Marquis's mansion will definitely fall into her hands in the future. It is so vicious. The little girl in the scarlet cloak knocked the in her hand and whispered, "My cousin saw the Marquis's triumph last time and cried for several days when she went home." Your cousin? The girl in the lake blue cloak was surprised and wanted to ask, but the girl in the crimson cloak covered her mouth. I can't say it. I'm afraid I'll ruin my cousin's reputation, and my mother will beat me to death. The girl in the scarlet cloak regretted a little. The girl in the lake blue cloak quickly assured, "Don't worry, we have been playing together since childhood, how can it be spread? Besides, your cousin is not the only one who has this idea." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 890. Chapter 890, Fighting Without Bloodshed. The girl in the crimson cloak blinked her big eyes twice, and suddenly remembered that her companion's cousin had a cousin who was over 18 years old and had not yet been engaged, and she opened her mouth in shock. The girl in the lake blue cloak nodded slightly and whispered, "There are too many noble ladies in Kyoto who think like this." The two of them became closer than before because they shared the secret, and they leaned together to chat. Soon, it was their turn to enter the palace with their sworn grandmother. Ji-Yin sat in her seat boredly, letting others look at her, and she also looked at them. Unfortunately, the female relatives who entered the palace without queuing were of high status, which also meant that most of them were quite old. I am really not interested in the good news. The same group of old and semi-old ladies stare at each other with big eyes and small eyes. But the banquet hall was divided into two, and the male guests on the opposite side were blocked by a screen. Ji-Yin wanted to see his adoptive father and father, but he couldn't. Simply, she fumbled under her cloak for a while and took out a travel journal to pass the time. Before going out, she packed an extra small bag to make it easier to get things from the space. This travelogue is about the customs of the Southwest Desert, and Ji-Yin is very interested in it. Just when she was thinking about letting Lao Hei and the others go for a walk in the future, the owner of the table under her finally came. She glanced at them and saw that they were two little girls of the same age. They were good-looking and well-dressed. She put the book away and planned to chat for a while. After all, the palace banquet is so boring, and it is too difficult to be without company. Unexpectedly, as soon as she sat upright and put on her cutest smile, the two little girls looked at her carefully, with their faces full of disgust and their eyes full of jealousy. Ji-yin was stunned for a moment, not understanding what went wrong. Fortunately, the two little girls were not very wealthy and took the initiative to clear up Ji-yin's doubts. The little girl in the crimson cloak whispered, "What are you pretending to be? You have to read a book when you go to the palace for a banquet. Do you want others to know that she is knowledgeable and sensible?" The little girl in the lake blue cloak also laughed and said, "Yes, but who doesn't know that she was born with mud legs? No matter how many books she reads or how much jewelry she wears, she can't change her earthy smell." "Oh, sister, don't say that. There must be some benefits to this, and maybe you want to charm someone. Don't ruin other people's good things." The little girl in the scarlet cloak probably felt that she didn't say anything because she was afraid of them, so her voice became twice as high. Shui Ling and Shui Yun saw their master reading, so they shouldered the important task of seeing and listening in all directions. At first, they didn't pay attention to these two noble ladies, but later they found out that they were actually mocking their master, and they were really annoyed. In an instant, at least a dozen ways of death flashed through the minds of the two of them, and they wanted to choose the worst one for these two talkative donkeys. But before they could speak, Ji-yin pulled their sleeves, then took the initiative to get close to the two noble ladies, and asked them with a smile, "Whose family do you two belong to? You are causing trouble outside, are you sure your home can support you? For example, if I have a serious discussion with you now, will your family take you to the broken gold beach to kowtow to me? If that's the case, then you will be embarrassed. Then you will regret your bad words now, and there is no way to remedy it." The two noble ladies did not expect that good news would come back in person. After all, they have punished others in this way before, and without exception, those little girls would endure it, pretend they didn't hear it, or run away crying. Thinking about Ji-yin's identity and the protection of the Li family and the Marquis, they were a little panicked. But they are not willing to admit defeat like this, and their faces are even more difficult to deal with. So, the noble lady in the scarlet cloak stiffened her neck and argued, "Princess, even if you have a high status, you can't accuse us so unfairly. We just chatted a few words, but we didn't mention him by name. The princess must take care of herself, and there's nothing we can do." "Hey, you are very sharp-tongued," Ji-yin smiled and gave a thumbs up, sincerely praising, "it seems that you are often so shady and bullying, you are already a veteran, and you are so good at evading." The lady in the lake blue cloak glanced around and saw many people looking over. She felt confident and said, "The princess has misunderstood. We have been taught strict rules at home since we were young, and we have never done anything rude thing. What are you talking about? We don't understand, only a girl from a small family would use such unscrupulous methods." Ji-yin really laughed out loud. "I didn't look at the Gregorian calendar when I went out today, but I encountered a tough guy. With nothing to do, she became interested in teaching the naughty child a lesson." She pulled up the chair and moved closer to the two noble ladies. From the outside, the three little girls seemed to get along quite well. "Just now I heard you say that I was born with mud legs and have an earthy smell?" Ji-yin asked with a smile, not allowing the two ladies to argue, and then said, "Actually, you are right, I smell earthy. What is soil, Mother Earth? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's better than the smell of brass all over your body and the filth and darkness in your heart." The two noble ladies stared at each other and were about to get angry. Ji-yin pressed their hands, and her smile became even more joyful. "Actually, everything in this world has flavor, it's just that you don't know it. I'll give you some popular science today. For example, the green vegetables you eat on daily basis grow so green because they are made of excrement and water, sprinkled with them every day, and the smell of watering makes them grow. When you eat green vegetables, you are actually eating excrement. And the fruits you eat, you have to water them with excrement and urine, and occasionally you have to bury dead cats and dogs under the trees. Because the fur and internal organs of cats and dogs become nutrients after decay, which will make the fruit grow better. Similarly, if you eat fruit, it is equivalent to eating a dead cat or a rotten dog. Besides, you didn't make your 3 meals a day with your own hands, right? Then who did it? The cook? It's best if you haven't offended the cook, otherwise he will spit a little while cooking, or he will not wash his hands after going to the toilet. Tisk 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 tisk. Ji-yin shook his head as he spoke, and even slapped his nose in front of his nose, as if he disliked the smell of the two girls. The two noble ladies tried to interrupt Ji-yin countless times, but Ji-yin had a sharp mouth, how could he give them a chance? The two of them listened from beginning to end and endured it again and again. When they couldn't bear it any longer, they turned around and started retching. Ugh, stop talking. Please stop talking, ugh. By now, almost all the people who had come to the banquet had arrived. Since it was a palace banquet, no one dared to be presumptuous and spoke in a soft voice. The two noble ladies suddenly retched, and were immediately shrouded in doubts from everyone. Even though the grandmothers of the two noble ladies immediately sent their nannies over to inquire, and made excuses that the two got drunk on the road, everyone still looked strange. Woman, retching. These two words together make people suspect that there is some kind of happy event. Fortunately, these two noble ladies are still young and others will not take them seriously, but after all, they are very embarrassed. Ji-yin had already retreated to her seat, hugging the stove and yawning quietly. Shui Ling and Shui Yun even pinched their thighs secretly to hold back their laughter. Even if the battle is not bloody, my own lady is still more powerful. Before the two noble ladies could complain to their grandmother, the entrance to the main hall suddenly became lively. The emperor, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, had already walked in with the queen mother. End of this chapter.